it's another time, another day, and I'm ready to go. And I made a mistake last week, or whenever I filmed with you last time. I actually said something about the Stone of Scone, and I believe it's in the Abbey, in Westminster Abbey, I think it is, and I didn't know where it was. But the Queen sits on it when she was enthroned. So obviously someone knows how important stones are. However, that was just a little something that I wanted to put right. Today, and I also would like to thank Lisa for a beautiful gift that I received this week. It's just so wonderful to know that people are appreciating what I have to say and to teach. So I will continue to teach, and today I'm going to speak about something that might be a little controversial for a few people. I'm going to talk about Jesus, who is very close to my heart. I work with the Christ Energies, which is love, care and compassion, and I have learned all the reasons why I work with those things. And so we've had quite a lot of information over the years about Jesus and about the Christ and about the connection between the two. So I thought I might talk about that. However, to start off with, I thought I would read you a little Earthbound, because I like to start off lightly. This is not one that I did with Margot, but of course I knew about it and found it very interesting, so I thought I would read you this to begin with. It was at Blackgang on the Isle of Wight. I pray you will not consider it an imposition that I address you, madam, but I deem it necessary to contact you between your plane and where I am, which is sometimes in a mist and sometimes in the light. My rank is not important, and it will suffice that I am an officer and a gentleman, my name being Tucker, and I resided at Puckester. This you can verify if you are diligent enough. One day, as I sat in my garden, I picked up a shell, and with a sharp knife, I started to scratch away at it. I found that I was making a face, yet I was not an artist, and was hardly aware of the masterpiece I was creating from this shell. I looked at the finished effort, and I saw Christ. Was it Christ? Yes, I was certain of this. I placed it carefully upon the bench and entered my house to call a member of the household to see this wonder. As I returned, I saw a seagull swoop from the sky and carry off my Christ. I searched everywhere, hoping it would have fallen from the erring creature's beak, but no. As I died, I thought of this and wondered how I had carved so beautiful an object. I had tried many times afterwards, but only a few scratches of no significance appeared. Now I see where it was dropped and fell in a crack in a large boulder near you. It could be found quite easily, as you have been led to the correct place. Be so good as to indulge my whims and find my Christ, so I may stay in the light, leaving the mist forever. Anyway, they started looking, but were having a bit of difficulty, and his voice spoke again. It may help you to know that I lived in the 19th century, and therefore some of the scenery has changed. I think you will find my Christ does not perch on top of a boulder, but is hidden away in a crack. Through the ravages of time and weather, it has gained shelter and is not harmed, as time has as time that changed the rock has helped preserve my Christ? Well, they did find it, and these were his last words. My felicitations. You and those with you risked their legs and arms in the search, and my Christ was found. It had been dropped and got into this crack, thus giving it shelter. As the real Christ offers shelter to those who seek him, I shall now continue to the brilliance which clears all mist. And with that, he was gone. I loved that bit. The Christ gives shelter. Anyway, Wally was able to trace this gentleman, as he'd given his surname and his place of residence. And he was Lieutenant General Tucker, and he resided at Puckerster Cottage in the 1860s. So that was just a little thought for beginning. Now this is the first book that I wrote. It's called Words in Transformation. And we were asked to write it, and it was to be about the teachings that have come through Robin. So I put it together, quite a long book. It's 400 and something pages, but of course I didn't write it all. I just transcribed everything and put it all in book form. And I just thought I would read a few things from this. And it was about me personally, just a little message for me. And one day Robin and Mary were channeling. Robin was channeling on the Beara Peninsula in West Cork, and I was sitting quietly at home. But I sit while they channel, while they get together, so the three of us are still linked. And when I transcribed the information that I got, these words came through, and it explained a little about our work together. The lady, that was me, that sits so gently with you this evening is the transcender of information. She transmutes this into the written word. She does it so well with beauty and love and care, and she rejoices in the words and sounds that are created by the verses. We rejoice, my child, with the work that you provide. It is like butterflies of rainbows flying out into the universe when we hear your rejoicing with the love and compassion that these words offer you and those around you. The two, Robin and Mary, that sit here are the workers. They are like the worker bees in the hive. They go out and get and gather and transcend. The mother that sits, she is like the queen bee. She gathers that information and holds it tight to her and allows it to transcend into other formats. That is your job, dear lady. So that's what I've been doing all these years, since about 1978 really. And as I'm going to talk about Jesus today, I thought I would mention some of the information that we received through Robin. And I will read a little bit. First of all, this was according to John Matthews, who is a writer. When a received tradition begins to petrify, losing its original cutting edge of truth in a tangle of dogmas, It becomes time for an esoteric tradition to arise, by which the great truths may not perish, but be revivified and transmitted to further generations. When the established hierarchy fails in its duty, it is as though the angelic powers inspirit humankind to produce those who will continue them. These are the people who stand in direct communication with the will of God, the mystics, the storytellers, the heretics, who formulate alternatives to the established ways of belief. And these were words, the following words, were words that we received through Robin. So I put, compare the following from our own received words. How can we expect teachings from 2,000 years ago to be of real relevance today when things have changed so drastically? Can we surely not understand why your disciples of your churches are becoming rather... I can't describe the words I feel for some of your shops. Shops? Yes, shops for the teachings of our Lord, the Christ. Are they not selling a product now, rather than giving of free will? Are they not asking you to give yourself totally to a cause, when you need to give of yourself within yourself to understand yourself, so that you can then understand others? We have not mentioned before the Christian beliefs and misunderstandings, but I believe that Christianity and the belief structure of humanity is an important thing. None of the manifestations of the Christ force were put here to misdirect humanity's thinking. They were always put there at the right time to provide a catalyst for humanity to develop from. The Christ consciousness is within the changes. Can you not understand? The Christ consciousness within this new millennium will be in your conscious thinking to be tapped into. The Christ realized on his last visit that he was wasting much energy in trying to teach many deaf ears, when only a few very bright ears were prepared to listen. And unfortunately, misinterpretation of many of the teachings were created. Hence your book, the Christ Bible. We do not have time nor the inclinations for this children's Bible, as I would put it. Much has been altered and changed to suit your shops, called the churches, to interpret what they required for the manifestation of well-being for the people that run these shops. I bid you that these unfortunate fellows will not only have a further 2,000 years of recreation of the physical form, I think they may have 4,000. Can you understand that the misguidance of the masses by the singular being cannot be accepted in any form? The Christ consciousness is now within the spiritual movement that is working towards the transitional change. He is there in every positive, every molecule of positive thinking. You are all now disciples following the Christ consciousness. We must always never venture too far away from the fact that spirituality runs always along the lines of God consciousness, And if it develops away from those two single lines, then you are off the rails. Always remember, the Christ consciousness is behind the manifestation of the changes. He is not the creation of the changes. He is behind the thinking of the changes. The Christ is born in every individual mind of light and is available for that thinking. So those were the words we were given. And I have written out, I gave a talk some time ago to a little group of people, and I spoke about the Christ consciousness and Jesus. And I will tell you what happened. It's a little group that I go to once a month, and it's just a family group. And I love these family groups because these are the ways that the teachings came about in the first place. Jesus would go to homes and he would teach the families. And that's the important thing. It's not going to great big churches with all the pomp and circumstance that goes with that. It's getting to the heart of the matter, going to homes, discussing the Christ consciousness, what you can do, how you can help, who you can be in your community. This is working with the Christ. It's working with the love energy. And anyway, this particular evening I went there, and there were five of us there altogether, and I read what I'm going to read to you now. And there's one man in the group, and he's in his 70s, and he was listening to me, and he said, afterwards, he said, "Wow, Carolyn," he said, "I've never ever seen that before." I said, "What do you mean you've never seen that before?" He said, "Well, I always see auras around people, but it's usually just a white light." He said, the colours around you, he said, were radiating and vibrating. He said, and your third eye was vibrating with these wonderful colours of greens and purples and blues. And he said, it just went on from the time you began, he said, until the time you finished. So I thought, well, obviously this is this is something people really ought to know, because if that's what's happening when I'm speaking about the Christ and Jesus, then and the light is happening in that way, then it's important information to be given out. So I may repeat some of those words that I've said there in this, because I wrote all this out, and then I gave a little. I read it in the Unitarian Church to a little group of people as well, and they seemed to enjoy it. So here we go. So these are words, as I say, that have all come through Robin. They always refer to him as Jesus the man. The man Jesus. Our man Jesus, they say.
To differentiate him from
Jesus Christ, as the church speaks of him.
Right.
Our man Jesus. It reminds me of the time when the man Jesus walked the earth. The story, the fable, the folk. The man Jesus walked around the earth, not because he was a special man, but because he understood the laws. He couldn't understand why others didn't understand the simplicity of why nature did what it did. He didn't understand why man couldn't project what was needed for himself. But man had become blind because he worshipped the footsteps that he made. He didn't understand that each footstep he made was louder and bigger than the previous, and he left his mark. Jesus chose not to leave his mark. He chose to be misunderstood for his actions, and in so being, they have written a book in his name, all misunderstood, all louder footsteps, all for one and one for all. You must understand, he was not here to project anything. He was here to let you know that he didn't understand why you did what you did, because he came from the source, from the original point, when he made his first footstep. He impressed upon planet Earth his intention of goodness, his intention that he was of divinity, of divide, but he will come back at one point. He will have to retrace his steps in reverse motion, go back all over the ground that he stood and trod upon. And in so doing, man will go into reverse, and reverse every pattern of thought, every pattern of elongation, until the earth can start once again in divinity. This is what is occurring, my children. We are all regressing backwards, not with knowledge, not with wisdom, but we are being asked to step backwards, to go back to the original source, and man is finding it so difficult. And in so doing, he is undoing much of what has been done. It isn't explosion, my children, it is implosion. It is about things going back to where they came from. An atomic bomb explodes, but if one could actually watch how they work, they implode, going back to where they came. That was one of the instances. The man Jesus had problems walking in the steps that he did, because one man would say one thing, but he would do in a very different way and leave his mark. We have lost the ability and bring into reality what we wish. What we actually do is follow the curse of everyone else. Follow the curse of everyone else and follow the pattern and walk the trodden path that everyone else chooses. The joy of eventually stating, "I am love," and the feeling one gets only lasts a minute second. And then the grief comes back as yesterday's paper sits under the table, peddling anger, fury, bombs, peddling things the mind doesn't need, and the weaponry of the TV. The weaponry of food used to endorse ill health. There is so much not allowing you to be your man Jesus. The way he stepped, the way he misinterpreted others, and those things were all there in different forms back then. Sloth-like beings, unable to walk the earth in a pattern accordant with nature. You do not wish to be the sloth, but our minds have become that. We may walk the planet, but our minds stay still. This is truth. You battle with what you feel is right and wrong, but there should be no battle. Just look for what is integral within your mind and use your integrity to know your truth. Do not take on other people's truths. It is their own choice which corner they choose to turn. You must not be impregnated with the words of mammon that disempower the very spirit and gift that you have been given. It is about projecting your light. It is about standing in your own right, like a statue on a hilltop, and projecting what you wish, not what you were told to wish. When I read that, it reminds me of that wonderful statue on the top of the mountain in South America. Have you seen it? the Christ.
Mm.
Yes, with arms outstretched. Wonderful. So imagine yourself there, getting what you wish, not what others want you to have. If you can imagine the disciples following our Lord Jesus, what did they have with them as they travelled around the land? They had a small satchel with a meagre covering for their bodies and simple tools to carry out their everyday processes. Are we not all disciples? Are we not all following a cause? It may not be our Lord Jesus, but, of course, he was manifesting the thoughts required for the period he manifested his spirit in. That spirit form would be a great help today, but changings in his teachings would be required. And then I spoke about the Christ consciousness being involved in the changes which I've already read, and we must never venture far away from the fact that spirituality always runs along the lines of God consciousness. Is this small burden on you too much for you to take? I believe not. You are all very special disciples of the new installation coming into action. Our time and your time never seem to coincide particularly well, and time slips are occurring in your dimension. We are coming from the future to the past to try and monitor your future, so you can understand the mathematical equations we might have to work out. They cannot be. We can only try and link into a conscious thinking, which is sometimes very difficult, as sometimes the switch just does not switch on. Always remember, the Christ consciousness is behind the manifestation of the changes. He is not the creation of the changes. He is behind the thinking of the changes. Loving unconditionally is a fallacy, my children. Even with us, in our evolved state, unconditional love is difficult. Our Master Jesus did not attain and had to work at unconditional love. It was not there instinctively. Now, Aris was our communicator at the beginning. He was the medium through which the information was brought down to Aris, and then Aris communicated the information to Robin. So he was our communicator from the realms as the information was stepped down through the realms. And I put a question to Aris as to where Jesus stands in all this. And the reply given was that Jesus was man's connection to the third dimension. He was the love connection with the God force formula. The love connection with the God force formula. The Jesus energy is forthcoming to all at this moment. God consciousness, Jesus consciousness, love consciousness, world consciousness, planet consciousness, human consciousness, animal consciousness, and earth consciousness will all connect to the following forthcoming energies. So it's open to all. We want you to diversify on the Jesus structure. The Jesus structure is coming to the planet in the format of the oscillations. There is much being said and seen of our man Jesus as he stands today. He has many rooms, and yours is one of them. You must understand that as he turns the pages, his pages in his Bible, his codings, your codings, need to be accepted before he can move on. He is patient with many groups, but not so patient with others. He is only a man in his thinking, but spiritual in his acceptance. We want to commence with the Jesus consciousness with regards to the immanence of his eminence. He wishes to contact many groups with regards to the energies and their properties. Your stability is now being rocked, and try and accept that much will be taken away with regards to what you wrap around yourselves in the name of security. You will then be an independent vessel. Your needs will be met, but your demands will not. We want you to progress in a God-force manner, and the elements within your bodies to be molecularly adjusted. Much adjustment is taking place as you speak. Oh, that was very interesting. Your bodies are being molecularly adjusted. The Bible is many, many years old, and much of the information needs to be renewed. But this is not being carried out by the correct consciousness. It is very difficult for the human to not be biased to a cause, and it is a divine consciousness that almost needs to channel the new information. This is what is happening now, and the Bible codings are being released, and true information of the words are being released. The name of the coding is love. Very difficult in our everyday life to put love truly into practice. But we are not expected to do that every minute of our lives. Our man, Jesus Christ, did not put that into his life every minute of every hour as he walked this planet. On many occasions, he chastised his disciples and had grievances for people. But he stood back and forgave himself for being angry. And this is the lesson we all need to learn. We must learn to forgive ourselves. He stood back and forgave himself for being angry. That is the lesson that we have to learn. You must understand that you are not always tied to the physical form. Your spiritual form is what you gather and take with you at all points. The physical form is discarded and used elsewhere. Get this duality into your thinking and do not expect perfection from your physicality. Jesus couldn't in his physical form, but in his spiritual form he could. More miracles happened outside the body than happened within. Project in your spiritual sense what you wish to happen in your physical life, and you will not be unfulfilled. Now, those are very important words. Project in your spiritual sense what you wish to happen in your physical life, and you will not be unfulfilled. Our man Jesus was here to truly teach you to forgive yourself for your actions. He understood that his disciples may not have acted out their true spiritual dimensional thinking. They acted out their true third dimensional thinking, which is self-preservation. We carry out that procedure because we have not been connected to our astral cosmic thinking. We are now beginning to be that. We have not been connected to our astral cosmic thinking, and we are now beginning to be that. Many of the masters that have visited the planet may well have chosen to have gone to a beautiful situation if they really wanted. But they chose to go to a place where they were most needed, where greed, turbulence, poison, and everything is that mankind can manifest. That is the true place to douse the fire. So they could have gone to all these wonderful, beautiful places in the world where there was peace and tranquility and warmth and love. But they didn't. They chose to go into the most difficult places. And I think they're still doing that. Many people go into the most difficult places. It's the only way to douse the fire. Our masters were all here for a reason. It was also for them to ignite the feelings and keys that were inside them, for them perhaps to move on to another vibrational frequency other than that was there at that time. Our man Jesus, I love it, could not be the perfect example all the time. On many occasions he was biting his tongue. Was he using his own words and verses to calm his inner soul through people's actions? He was a three-dimensional density. Therefore, he had to live and abide by those densities. It took him 30 years to be able to cope with some of the manifestations and foolishness of man. He spent 3 years vibrating at a frequency that was well above those around him. He has left and manifested much information which has been released from the pockets around the countries that he visited. And he visited many. Not only in his third dimensional capacity. Our Jesus had many rooms, and those were his rooms, my children. He could venture in 7 different directions of the 7 points, offering the manifestation of those frequencies of the chakra, the lower levels, the higher levels, and the heart levels. It is important for you to understand that for man to change, for earth to change, for consciousness to change, for the connection to interplanetary spirals to change, it starts through the energetic frequency of that lays within the planet. And that is man. You are not just conduits of experience. You are conduits of God consciousness. You are the divine fuse that connects the electricity through to many other facets of this planet. This is why there are so many star seeds at this point. They are showing the way. They are giving the equilibrium to those around. We are the divine fuse. What a lovely way to put it. All those who are aware and working with the Christ consciousness are the divine fuse which brings that information down through to be shared with humanity and for those who are prepared to listen. So from one divine fuse to all those out there, so many other divine fuses, I wish you well. It's not an easy task we've taken on, but it's a good one, and it makes you feel good, and it makes you shine. And the more you light up your divine fuse, the greater you shine. So God bless you all. And I hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say about our man Jesus. And now, I have been asked questions. This information is put onto the Avalon forum, and some of the members of the Avalon have asked questions. I am going to read the questions, and Sam will put Robin's answers on in Robin's voice, because although I've written it all out, we've decided that perhaps to get it straight from the oracle itself would be an interesting experiment. So shall I just read the questions and then you can add them to the work that you do, Sam?
Exactly, yeah. If you read the questions, then I'll add Robin's audio recording.
Righty-ho then. I'll find the questions. Well, the first one is from someone who goes by the name of Orph, O-R-P-H. Does negative energy have an impact on the natural world? Do our collective negative energies play a part in this type of behaviour in nature, such as various monkeys and other primates will attack, maim and kill others? Even species of dolphins have been known to attack each other. So that's question 1.
This is an answer to question 1. Negativity in itself is a form of energy, as are all energies a form. You must understand that polarities follow polarities. So therefore negativity in itself is purely a polarity. But if we bring it forward and look at the way instinctive behaviour happens, you must understand that all things occurs for reasons. But reasons don't always have occurrences behind them. We'll try not to use quantum thought patterns here, but it's very difficult to explain questions or give answers when you cannot use the quantum complexities. Human minds have a setting, and as yet the DNA will not allow that setting to move into quantum thinking. But it will in time, my children. Negativity does have an impact on all aspects of life. One must understand that the ramifications of change have to be implored, and implored they will. Change in itself must occur, and in the change, rectifying processes come into play. Look at a circle, and if you had 25 dots all the way around a circle, and at start A, and you start going clockwise or counterclockwise, it matters not. If you look at all the different dots, they're different aspects of choice, some of which have polarity to them. We could call that plus or minus. Going round that navigation of a circle, you must understand that each complexity has a different option. and each option gives a complexity. Animals follow complexities. They follow what it is that they need to do to survive. Nobody states they must or must not. They do. If you look at a lizard or a snake, if they're hungry, they could even eat their offspring because they're hungry. They don't have the same feeling, that emotive feeling of kinship that we as human beings do. Depending on the nature of the energy system that's contained within the energy form, it depends on how it behaves. If you go back to potentially how the dinosaurs worked, they just ate when they were hungry, slept when they were sleepy, communicated when they wanted to communicate, and that was that. Were they solitary animals? Were they solitary reptiles? You have to ask yourself these questions. Now, in answer to the negativity, one just has to look at it as polarity, and change in itself is due, but only when a change of polarity comes into play. Every energy form on this planet, and many other planets, but let's stick to this planet, is in a process of going round that circle, filling in the integral parts of those 25 dots. And in so doing, every aspect of that energy form is given an opportunity to flourish, be it good, bad, ugly, indifferent, up, down, in, out. This is why we, us, you, mustn't look at negative aspects as negative. They must be seen as an opportunity to grow. All life forms in themselves come and go. Not all life forms carry soul. Some are communicative souls. Some are part of a multi-soul regime. Some are singular. You must look at these things. Look at the biodiversity of how these things work. We cannot answer that question in full, but what we can say to you is, my children, my people, my person, everything has a right to do what it does. Doesn't make it right and it doesn't make it wrong, but what it does make it is on a journey towards a causality. Thank you for your question, and God bless.
Question 2 is from Yoda. I believe it is right to replace atomic, hydro, wind and solar energy with universal energy. When will I see our previous energy achievements return? And where is my part in all of this?
In answer to question 2 about the changing of energy parallels on planet Earth and moving back to universal energy. If one could see and look at the previous question, you'll understand that everything is a choice. Every step forward or every step back is an opportunity for growth and learning. At the present time, the planet in itself does not have the right to work with universal energy, because universal energy is pure. And the mindset that must use universal energy must also work on a purity of thought, mind, body, soul, spirit, mentality, and so on. Yes, of course, we have all known that these things were once working like a finely tuned engine. And the differentials that we use today with fossil fuels and such like that do more harm than good weren't necessarily in play in the same way. But you must understand that when you are at play school, you play with simple toys. But when you move to big school, you learn to use the bigger toys. The question is, what school of learning and appreciation must one have? One is all part of a choice. But for things to change, it is about changing individually. Each characteristic of change isn't necessarily about being devoid of any of the previous energy and not using them, because one has to. If you want to go somewhere, probably the best way to go is by car, aeroplane, ship, and so on. To walk means you are in a small arena of opportunity. So use what you have on the planet, but don't abuse what you have on the planet. This is the important concern. We as human beings have an opportunity to grow, and that growth is happening right now as we speak, as we listen. We have that opportunity, as do all kindred spirits. Now, being a kindred spirit basically means you are carrying the knowledge to move forward rather than to stay stationary or move backwards. Being kindred means you have that pointed part of you heading in a directive towards goodness and well-being. That is a journey, a stepping stone towards universalness. Universalness in itself is an opportune component to be able to use parts of the universal knowledge that we once all had when we had 12 functioning strands of genetic DNA. It must be understood that we were never tinkered around with. We were not removed DNA. We removed this ourselves because we were becoming a danger to ourselves. Consciousness in itself demanded that we remove levels of consciousness that will cause harm not only to self, but to the surrounding arena. We have all been part of this. And we will all be part of the reintroduction of the original characteristics. Just bear in mind that every soul on this planet right now that is working toward the kindred arena of universalness has and was and will be part of the original reason why these changes occurred. Because our consciousness was devolving rather than evolving or revolving. We are now moving towards a more conscious awareness, and we are now coming back here to reintroduce new opportunities. So, my dear children, my people, my person, if one wants to know what one can do about using universal energy, it's about understanding the importance of taking the stepping stones to personal honesty and integrity. Working with purity of heart, care and compassion. Bringing yourself back to centre. Do not be devoid of using fossil fuels and such like, because it means you will not be able to visit people. It is important to stay in touch. Do not lose touch with yourself. God bless and thank you. God bless. Be wished well. Thank you.
Question 3 was from Harmony. Some souls know what they don't want anymore through their experiences in this lifetime and previous or future lives. Is there a space where soul entities exist, where defence and attack dynamics are no longer necessary, and alignment with love and unity creates its own safe haven? Or is there a part of us there in that safe haven already, and just interfacing with us here to develop our souls further and bring other souls back that are stuck in the school or dream matrix?
Question 3. A good question with many layers of answers. It has been said in answer to previous questions that the quantum elements are very difficult to bring into play when you are stuck firmly in human experience. We have not always been stuck firmly in human experience because we are and will continue to be universal beings. And universal beings in themselves have been part of everything from a speck of dust right the way through to a planet themselves. We have been many, many things, many different levels of consciousness. Now, do we wish to be stuck in this very thick soup of opportune or unopportune moments that we find ourselves part of? A big boiling pot with so many different ingredients inside, all mixed together, some of which don't work together, some of which do. That's where we are right now, with so many different complexities all occurring at one point in universal time, known as now. Do we want to be here? Probably not. Do souls that carry heart want to experience what it is they're seeing through their eyes, through the news, through others doing to others, and so on? Swords, axes, guns, bullets, and so on. Of course we don't wish to see that, but we are here for reasons. Every single person on this planet right now is here for a reason. Yes, one might be tired. Yes, one might be experiencing things that one would never wish to expect. We are learning to overcome situations where humanity is pressed up against the wall with no opportunity to turn round, turn left, turn right. Your nose is pushed. That's where we all are. People are losing themselves because they can't find themselves. The questions that one has to ask oneself is, why? Why has this all occurred at this point in time? Because it needs to happen. It's an end of one period and a moving into another period. And by doing so, it's a little bit like moving from one room to the next. And you have baggage and garbage, stuff that you think's important and you want to take it through to the next room. But only you can go through. And you have to discard all this previous stuff before you can move through to the next room. God has many rooms. You have been party and experiencing one, and you are hopefully going to move into another. But you cannot do so with this baggage. Do you wish and want to be here? Yes, you do. You chose to be here, every single one of us. Nobody forces anything on anybody. Energy in itself works itself through. This is the difference. There is a defined differential between the energy of love and the utility of energy. Now, energy in itself will always find itself again in reverse. It's a parallel. What you send out comes back. What comes back is what you sent out, but you can't remember. Because it might have been a lifetime ago or 25 lifetimes ago that these things are coming back to you, and you're serving and working through them. The karmic wheel in itself that's present on planet Earth is a corrupted system, has been for thousands of years. But it's a system that we have to work with. We are recycled on planet Earth. We do not go back to the universe like we used to once upon a time. When you passed away, you didn't just incarnate back on planet Earth. You had the opportunity to incarnate and work in many different energy forms. But a few eons ago, a matrix was put round the planet, like a grid. And souls do not leave and go back to the universe. They get recycled back onto planet Earth and have to work within a corrupt energy system known as karma. Karma in itself is energy working with energy. You might consider karma a loving scenario. It's a loveless system. It's a robotic energy. Now, this might be difficult to hear, but it is true. But it is the system that we are working within. Why are we working within this system? Because we, us, you, were part of the creation of why that matrix was put there in the first place. There are answers to all things. Read your own book, and you will get your answer. But if you read deeply into your book, you will find components of yourself that you will not like. Because every single person here that is trying to make and implement change was once upon a time an individual or a multi-form of individuals that implemented change in a format that wasn't conducive to everyone. We are meeting ourselves in reverse. And we are here, entitled or unentitled as it may be, to implement change using one thing and one thing only: example and love. One may ask, well, what is it that one must do? Keep things very uncomplicated. Keep your mind pure, your thoughts pure. Do not look at other people and try and convert them. Be the example, be love, be care, be compassion. We are all here right now at this point in universal time for good reason. Stay grounded, stay loving, stay caring. Focus yourself in the light. God bless you, and thank you, and thank you.
And question number 4 was from Jill. There is talk of a literal splitting of worlds and realities coming up soon. Is that something Robin can see?
I answered the question before. Splitting of realities and worlds. This is the crucial time in universal time for the planet of Earth, because she is funded in so many different ways by so many different energies. Universal time in itself is a complex component, but it cannot adjust itself. It cannot mimic or become something else or be adjusted by something. All things happen when they are due to happen in universal time. But within those universal times, you have complexities where time can stay still. It can go back and forward, but it will always have to go past a certain datum. And that datum for us is now. One might look at the reality of now and see this total separation that's going on between those that do and those that don't, those that know and those that don't know, those that will and those that won't. If there is a change and a separation, it is indeed happening now. The Mayan calendar, as such, finished, and a new stage of evolution has been brought into play, where old cannot come through to new, and new cannot affect the old. All that can happen is change, whatever that change may be, complex as that may be. Genetics in themselves follow the rulings of understanding, but that understanding in itself doesn't have a matrix of thought pattern behind it. It is about experiencing, working with datums and thought patterns. Why are we being bombarded at this point in time with so many negative thought patterns? To keep us from changing our mindsets. This is why it's so very, very important at this point in time not to get caught up in those negative programmings. Because that in itself is the old world trying to keep everyone within itself self-contained, so that nobody will escape. It's a little bit like a ship that's sinking and everyone's tied to the handrails. Just untie yourself. Let yourself go. Believe what there is to believe. Believe there is good, love and care. We will lose people we love, not only through death and demise, but through misunderstandings. People will just refuse to take on board what seems like wise actions, because people are frightened. Fear in itself will reduce you down to a melting pot of disaster. But if you step away from fear and accept that that could be somebody else's choice rather than your own, then you have an opportune moment to step forward into something that could appear to be fearful, known as the unknown. It is unknown because universally you have not recognized it, because it is something you have not seen for many, many eons. When you pass away from this planet, follow the light. Go back to the universe. Follow the stars. Do not be recycled. Use the onus, the most important thing you have inside you. It's called the knowing, the feeling. It works with the satellite system that you have within you, known as your heart. Take heart, my children. Love and love all things, no matter what. Accept choices are choices and no more. But your choices can be so much more. For now, forever, stay centered and loving. God bless and thank you.
That's it.